Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler, and we are back once again with an action-packed show looking back at the 6 games which took place in the Scottish Premiership weekend. That's right, we're doing them all in one show this time, and helping me to do so to look back on the 6 matches where there was a whole lot of drama, a whole lot of refereeing controversy, and a whole lot of really good goals scored as well. It's Euan Taylor. Euan, how's it going?
Hello, Craig. Hello. It's happened again in terms of my own personal hex on Rangers when I appear on the main show of the Scottish Football Podcast. And you know what? When you asked me if I could do this, I was like, it's only Livingston, it'll be fine. And it wasn't. So, excellent. That's my own main character syndrome thing. Can I have any bearing on the title race? Is everything is said here. But I had a good weekend apart from the obvious, albeit it wasn't all bad today in terms of the Scottish football results, so we'll come on to that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this. I wasn't aware of this. So look forward to me getting booked in for every single Sunday from now until the end of the season.
I know, but I'm pretty sure it's the last 3 or 4. It certainly was. The last time I was on was with Rob, and that was after the Hibs draw. I'm sure the time before that that was probably towards the start of the season when, frankly, that had been every week the Rangers were dropping points.
Actually, I take it back. You're definitely not going to be in next week then, in that case, because I think that's, from a Hearts perspective, I think that's the worst result next week. It's a Celtic victory at Ibrox.
I think I don't know.
Well, Celtic have got that game in hand. That game in hand would only be 3 points, and if it beat Rangers at Ibrox, they've still got Rangers to play Rangers at Celtic Park, and we've still got to play Celtic at Celtic Park, but we've got Rangers at home in all likelihood after the split. So I would say, I know where you're coming from in terms of Celtic might just be pish and might start plummeting, but I'm not going to go that far. I'm not holding out much hope for that happening. But we'll get on to all that. We'll get on to Celtic's playing. But I would say the worst result for next week from a Hearts perspective is the Celtic victory at this stage of things.
We'll see.
A draw is the best result. Everybody wants a draw. Every Hearts fan wants a draw. But I would say the worst of the 2 teams winning would be Celtic. I would think, because of that game in hand, if they win that, and it's against an Aberdeen team, which I don't have much faith in to cause any problems. Yeah, we'll come on to them as well. But Euan, I believe you've just recently returned from holiday. Is that correct?
I have indeed. I was away in Spain last week. So I was in Madrid, which was not sunny. I think it's the first time I've been to Madrid, and so I go to Madrid regularly because that is where my wife is from. So I have family there, and the weather was crap. So apart from that, I kind of forgot what you do in Madrid when the weather's crap. But there are lots of museums and stuff for the kids and all that, so we went to all those. But yeah, it was a pleasant week.
Well, I'm sorry that the weather was crap, but your holiday does tie in nicely with today's sponsor, and that is Saily. Saily is an eSIM app that gives you affordable mobile data in over 200 destinations worldwide, including Spain. So it's perfect for any terrace listener who, over the coming weeks, is going to be taking a city break or going on holiday, or if you're one of those Scotland fans who likes to get over to Italy to see the likes of Scott McTominay or Lennon Miller or Lewis Ferguson in action over there. For whatever reason you want to travel outside the UK and stay connected through your phone, Saily can help you greatly reduce or even eliminate roaming fees. No waiting in queues at airport to get a local SIM, and no faffing about with tiny bits of plastic. You just download the app, choose your destination, pick a data plan, and activate it in minutes. Euan, have you ever had to get a local SIM when you've been abroad, or have you just been like the rest of us getting stung by roaming fees, which aren't as bad as they used to be, that's to be said, but still, I was in South America this summer, and that ended up being a pretty hefty bill at the end of it, and I wish I'd known about Saily before then.
Yes, yeah, no, I had to upgrade my plan, so I got data bill. I think it only works in Spain, I think. So I do remember going to New York a couple of years ago and just being our phones are like an extension of ourselves now, so I find it weird and unsettling when I can't access data the way I'm used to. So indeed, just at the holiday I was on there, I had to watch several games of Scottish football on my phone because I didn't have a laptop or anything with me, and obviously there was a lot going on. over the last week or so. So yeah, I was kind of heavily reliant on using mobile data abroad. And yeah, actually when I moved to Spain a few years ago, I had to get a SIM there, and Spanish. I don't know if it's improved in the interim period, but the Spanish telecoms plans are an absolute bump compared to theirs. So I was paying an absolute fortune for not very much, as far as I could tell, which may have been my own naivety. But yeah, so it's. I think probably that's the main thing I would use it for, is just watching the games, which are unmissable at the moment.
Yeah, certainly are. So Celtic can help with that, and also it's got security features which enable you to browse away from home with greater web protection. So download Saily, that's SAILY, in the App Store, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can scan the QR code on screen now. Use code TerracePod at checkout to get 15% off your first purchase. The details are in the podcast episode description as well. But without any further ado, Euan, let's get to a tremendous week in the Scottish Premiership. I think you were asking earlier, is this the best weekend of the entire season? It's, yeah, pretty much. Because
not for me, but yeah, I think it probably is.
We've got game 5th on the list here. It's got the Thunder Bastard winner in the 85th minute with a red card and 5 goals in the game overall. But that's well done list because there's just so much happening. Yeah. And what we're going to begin with instead is the team who have thrown their hat into this title race. Motherwell winning 5-0 on Saturday evening away from home at St Mirren. Eli just got the scoring started in the 14th minute. That was then doubled by Tawanda Maswanizi, who converted from the spot after he himself had been fouled by Shamal George. That was in 30 minutes. Motherwell pretty much killed the game off 4 minutes after restart with Ibrahim Said scoring a deflected effort. Richard King was sent off in quite controversial fashion for St Mirren, but I don't think, well, it was a bit of I would say it was a nonsense decision, and I think certainly a lot of St Mirren fans would say that. I don't think there's any St Mirren fans saying it really have a bearing on the outcome of the game because they were well beaten by that point anyway. But Motherwell just rubbed it in further with Emmanuel Longill getting a goal on the 58th minute after a VAR review showed that he was in fact onside. And then Björgolfsson with an acrobatic effort to complete the scoring for Motherwell in the 66th minute. And Euan, are you buying it? Motherwell, title contenders?
I think they are the best team in the country at the moment, which I think a lot of people are saying, and I think it's difficult to agree. The weird thing about this game, though, I do think, like, would it have been 0-0 if Shamal George could be normal? Because pretty much everything, I think he's at fault for every single goal. Like, no, a couple maybe where you're like, well, that may, like the Björgolfsson one, maybe that would have been a good save. And maybe the side one, took a nick, maybe that would have been a good save. But they all sort of go through him. Or he gave away a penalty.
No, the side one goes in the corner, does it? No, I'm sure the side one's.
That kind of goes.
That's a big deflection.
Well, it takes a nick, but George is like there, and it goes like through him, I would say. And certainly I thought for the Just one, that reminded me of Mikey Moore's goal to Parkhead, actually. With like, it was kind of, you don't want to be again compared to Kasper Schmeichel at the moment as a goalkeeper. And he reminded me there of him. So it looked to me like, I mean, that's almost this game live, and certainly Motherwell were the better team. So that's not to say that if George hadn't made a series of errors, they wouldn't have found another way to score. I think he probably would have. But yeah, it was an absolute howler of a performance from Shamal George, I thought.
Absolute howler of a performance from St Mirren in general, because they really, like, we'll get on to how great Motherwell were. You've just made us I asked you about whether Motherwell were title contenders, and you've just gone on about Shamal George, so we may as well just talk about St Mirren being shite and get that out of the way first then. So St Mirren were really poor. Like, the main, it's like, as good as Motherwell were, St Mirren didn't do any of the things you thought they would do to try and really make it harder for Motherwell. There's so many times, especially in that first half, where it looked like you could drive a bus to the centre of St Mirren's side. So many times guys like Just or Said or like would just turn and they'd have so much space in front of them. Elliot Watt seemed to have all the time in the world to do his thing and dictate the game. And part of that is what Motherwell do well, and we'll get on to that, but it just really didn't seem like the St Mirren team that you expect, that you've grown to if not loved, then certainly grown to appreciate over these last few seasons. And I think that's why there's, for me, massive alarm bells are ringing around him, because like Robinson changed the formation to start this one. He went to a 4-3-3, and he'd done so even though Mark O'Hara was back in this team and Keanu Bacchus was back on the bench. And they've been a couple of kind of big misses from that St Mirren midfield that you're familiar with. Like, so usually O'Hara, Phillips, and then you would either have Bacchus, or in previous seasons you have Boyd Munce, and that Devaney looks like he's supposed to be the kind of footballer in there. But even though he's got O'Hara back for the first time in a while, he changes shape, which to me suggests that Robinson knows that the problems go a lot deeper than just the formation they're putting out, and he's trying to come up with something different to try and create a spark in this team. And you have to wonder whether it's a case of, we've said before for Celtic teams, like the Celtic team in 2020-21, and I mean the current Celtic team as well, a few of their players, where there's kind of guys thinking, well, I've completed it. And you wonder whether that kind of mindset has been able to kind of spread throughout some members of this team, guys who have been there for a while after winning the cup final. You finished third, you finished top 6 3 years in a row, qualify for Europe, and then you win a cup. And ever since, and although the league form wasn't great before then, but they were I think they were a bit more unlucky at the start of the season, whereas now they just really look out of sorts. And other than that game against Hearts, just do not play like you expect the St Mirren side to play. And that's why I think it's such an alarming position that they're in, because they're just kind of waiting for a spark to kick them back into life. And sometimes you can still be waiting for that when the music stops.
Yeah. I mean, if they didn't think they were in maybe this is the game, maybe this is like rock bottom.
Yeah. Maybe this is the spark they actually needed, that they got embarrassed in their home turf, and that's going to give them the lift they need.
Maybe, yeah. Just when you were talking there about that, I mean, the one game it kind of actually just came to mind was actually St Mirren against Killie last season. That was 5-0, I think, wasn't it? Or it was something like that. It was an absolute...
Season before, I think, was it not 5-2?
No, it was last season, because I remember that it was Killie fans wanted McKenna sacked after it. And then...
Sorry, Guy, St Mirren beat Killie 5-0. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, yeah. So it reminded me of that a wee bit, but that kind of sparked a reaction of, at that point, it was like, oof, Killie are in trouble here, and McInnes is in trouble. And then they recovered,
and now he's going to win the league.
No bother at all. And now he's, well, is he? Yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, but that was, I mean, that it just shows how, like, he would have been getting the Hearts job if probably if Killie had lost the next couple of games after that, because he was being sacked. But anyway, but yeah, that felt like you would think that, and from a perspective of hope, I suppose, that like that's the show. This is the nadir. It doesn't get any worse from here. And they start to pick up points, because I mean the league is going to. I mean, I'm not sure about Livingston notwithstanding today's performance, which we'll come to. I think they're gone, but everybody else. I mean, it could be really, really close. And I think there's plenty of teams who should be looking over their shoulder, frankly, given the state of their performances. But yeah, St Mirren are absolutely in it, so they need to buck up their ideas. And I'm not sure. So they've also tried to do bits and pieces in January, and Devaney looked a really good player to begin with, maybe faded, hooked at half time here, young up front. I don't really know why
he did do well
playing.
for that early chance that he kind of created himself.
Yeah,
but
that's. I mean, but he's like, he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't have the pedigree to me to be playing ahead of the guys that your Mandron. I don't know, Mandron's not in great form, but like neither's Jake Young. Like he's not scored anything. He's more red cards than goals since he signed. What's like? Why is he playing ahead of guys that have sort of kind of done it for them? So even Lundoli, who's like obviously very up and down, but when he's up, he's good. So yeah, you fear for St Mirren a wee bit, albeit you still think. Well, I still think they've got. You keep saying it, but it does need to be proven on the park at some point. But they feel too good to go down to me, or even to finish 11th.
So, are Motherwell in a title race, Euan? How about you answer the fucking question this time?
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, I think they are, because I mean, so they're 10 points behind.
Yeah,
Hearts,
they've got the game. The game in
hand.
hand is clear. Clear. Yes. The game in hand is key, because that would mean that if they win that's 7, and that would only, especially like say Celtic and Rangers draw, and I know that's Motherwell game in hand isn't coming next week, but you go with this line of thinking. You take that as given, they win that, so that's 3 points. Sorry. So Celtic and Rangers draw this weekend, that would put them just 4 points behind Rangers and 2 behind Celtic. So the most of Celtic win that game in hand against Aberdeen the following week. Midweek would be only 5 points. And then they've still got to play Hearts twice. They've still got to play Celtic twice. I mean, you probably need 10 points for those matches, but the way they've been playing this season and have continually got better as the season's gone on, I'm not going to say that's definitely not a possibility. Like, there's a lot of things that have to happen. And I've seen a couple of different models. One that put their chances of winning the title at 0.5%, and another put it at 2%. So usually we wouldn't talk about a team like that that have so little actual statistical chance of doing it. But I'm looking at the table, I'm looking at how good they've been, and I think to really kind of believe that they can push this towards the end of the season and can at least make the teams above them sweat or jump above 1 or 2 of them. I think what they need to do is in these matches against Hearts, Celtic and Rangers, is instead of just picking up 1 point, pick up 2. Sorry, pick up 2? I can't do that. Pick up 3. Because they've drawn with Hearts both games. They beat Celtic, but then they lost at Celtic Park where they should have got something out of it. But they've also drawn twice with Rangers, where certainly the first game of the season, I didn't see the most recent one, but the first game of the season, they should have won that. So if they're going to do it, all these draws they've had are going to have to be victories. And they also can't really slip up in games that they should win, starting with Dundee United at home this weekend.
Yeah.
So it's a lot that has to happen, but they've been so good that I'm still saying that I think it's fine at this point in time. I'm not going to argue against saying they're in the title race, because there was a lot of things that needed to happen there. But as you said, right now, the way they're playing, they're the best team in the country.
Yeah, and you can look at they've got a pretty hard fixture. So they run to the split is Dundee United home, Dundee away. Yeah, well, let's just dismiss the Dundee teams. Those are easy games. But then Celtic away, maybe that's an easy game. Hibs at home, Falkirk at home, Hearts away. So once they've got the Dundee teams out of the way, it's the other teams other than Rangers, the rest of the teams in the top 6. So, but that's obviously difficult, but an opportunity at the same time. Like, you can take points off the teams they need to catch. So, I mean, they'll have, provided if you assume they win their game in hand, they'll have the best goal difference in the league. Which is ridiculous. So they've got joint best goal difference at the moment with Hearts, but obviously if they win it, they would have a better goal difference. They have the best defence in the league, despite the fact they don't play with centre halves half the time. It's a great, like, it's the most un-Scottish Premiership team I think I've ever seen in terms of this makeup, particularly for obviously. I mean, and like there's not an Old Firm team that has like been as extreme as this in terms of like Ange Postecoglou played pretty much two sort of it sounds a bit disparaging, but like two cloggers at centre half in Carter Vickers and Starfelt, who were not particularly great footballers but were very good defensively, and that was the bedrock of it. They play. Motherwell play, normally quite often they play like 4 right backs, it seems, or two, at least, half the defence is made up of right backs. They've got the mix and match a lot. They don't play with a defensive midfielder as we would understand it. Really,
no, usually Watt's the most deep line, and he's not a defensive midfielder in the defensive sense. He's just that's what his position is.
Yeah, and they don't play
deep
with a
line
striker
playmaker is what you call him. And they don't have a striker.
Yeah, so it's like, and they don't really, but they don't really even play with like wingers as such, really either.
No,
like,
they're all it was just Slattery and Said for the game of the weekend, and they played what you kind of usually do, a 4-2-3-1, and those three just kind of drifted about everywhere.
I mean, it's fantastic. So, I mean, you can't praise them enough. They've been brilliant, and it is an extra. Like, I actually would go as far to say I don't think they'll finish 4th.
Oh, really?
I think they'll finish higher than 4th.
They don't think they'll win the league, but you think they'll finish.
But I don't think they'll win. I think they're kind of. just how tight it is, you kind of need all three teams above them, all of them, which, to be fair, like this weekend, you could say they all look kind of capable of that, right? But you need all of them to perform worse, quite a few points worse than Motherwell from here on in, which I think is unlikely. I think one or two will not do that. But I think there's a good chance that one of those three does fall to bits quite a bit, because especially if it becomes clear that they're not one of those three, it kind of gets left behind by the other two. Which again, there's not that many games left, so that's, you can query whether that will happen. But if that does happen, it's always been a 3-horse race or a 4-horse race. It becomes like a 2-horse race. I think that team that's in third might well chuck it, intentionally or otherwise, depending on who the if it's one of the old firm and they're desperate for their rivals not to win the league. So that could have bearings as well. But unlike certain other teams' rivals who can't help but because it said the rivals on the way to the championship. So yeah. I think they've got every chance. The split is going to be absolutely mental. I cannot wait for the split.
Falkirk are going to be a tough out as well.
Like it's going to be so good. If it stays like that or even gets tighter, which it might well do, then the split is going to be absolutely box office. If
there's any lobbying can be done behind the scenes in terms of when the fixtures will be, if I'm Hibs, I'm just lobbying like as hard as possible to get the derby as the first game after the split, and then afterwards just tell everybody the season's over, guys, go on holiday. We're gonna give the youth players a chance.
But even it's just. But it's like that. But Hibs could end up still like league wise. They're not going to have a good season if Hearts win the league, regardless of where they finish. But Hibs are only 5 points behind Motherwell. So Hibs could albeit Motherwell play the game less, but like Hibs could overhaul Motherwell maybe. So it's nuts what could transpire between now and the end of the season.
Right, let's move on to our second game, and that is one of the two matches that took place on Sunday at 3:00, and that is Livingston 2, Rangers 2. So, Brooklyn Cabangolo opened the scoring for the Lions with a terrific volley from a Robbie Muirhead free kick. Livingston then made it 2-0 in the second half, 55th minute. Lewis Smith with a nice finish after some suspect Rangers defending. But then not long after that, Christian Montano was shown a straight red card for a professional foul. Rangers puffed and puffed a little bit, but eventually got themselves back into things with Manuel Fernandes. Another tremendous finish. They rifled it in the back of the net. Mikey Moore scored with a header, setting up a blockbuster finish where Mikey Moore, looking to shoot from the edge of the area, brought down by Cammy Kerr. The referee gave nothing at the time. VR had a long look at it. It was deemed that the tackle had taken place outside the box, which on the replays looked to be right, but they decided it was not a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity. So because that, they could have then given him a red card, and it would have been a free kick to Rangers on the edge of the penalty area, and they would have been playing against 9 men. But because they didn't, no free kick was given, and the game was just allowed to continue. Now, I think it was the right call not to give a penalty. It's usually, there's a whole thing of contact continuing inside the box, but that is usually what's judged on shot pulls and things of that nature. But when it's tackles, they're looking for the first point of contact, as that being the foul. And as you can see from the replays, that does take part outside the box. However, having initially agreed with some people who say, and I think Chris Boyd was one of them, who said that I think it was Fatty was coming across and he was just going to block the shot if the tackle hadn't been made. I've slowed it down, I've looked at it again, and no, Mikey Moore is definitely getting that shot off if Cammy Kerr doesn't. And there's a clear line of sight to goal there, and I think you've got to be calling that a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity. So it should have been a red card, and Rangers should have been able to play the final, I think maybe 8 minutes it would have been, of injury time against 9 men.
Yes. But it's not, I'm not as... I would have probably had to miss this recording session because I would have been marching on Hampden had it been inside the box and not been given. But that's so I was pretty adamant that was the case. But then I was like, okay, fair enough, because they didn't show that during the game. That was the thing. Like they had an angle that showed it was outside the box, but they never actually showed that during when we were waiting for the decision. But anyway, so that's like. It's not. I think obviously yes, it would be good to play against 9 men, have a free kick in a dangerous enough position rather than what happened, which was nothing. However, I don't think in that it was backs to the wall. I'm not sure how much of a difference it really would have made. Who knows, right? It's obviously not as clear cut as you'd hope it would again a penalty would be. I don't think it's a shocker. It's horrendous refereeing in the first place, obviously, just to not give him a foul, because he obviously thought and saw Cammy Kerr get the ball, but like there's no way they can get the ball without going through Moore from the position he was in, right? So it's just piss poor refereeing. To not give the Dogso thing, obviously, like has become a talking point over the last fortnight or so, maybe slightly longer. Going back to the Trusty one, now we've got ourselves a right fankle here with this, because if it turns out that like some of the composure of Olasanya can be on the ball at the halfway line, and that's a red card because it's a denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity because there's no one between him and the goal from the halfway line.
Or Max Waters.
Or Max Waters, indeed, it's even worse, right? But whereas someone actually shooting on the edge of the box, like, is not a goal scoring opportunity. I struggle with that. Now, I think the reason that they have and Fatty, unless Fatty has like a teleportation device, he's not going to get in front of the shot, right? The shot could have gone anywhere, but that's not what it's about. A lot of the time, it's like, he would have got a shot off. That was what was said in the for the Trusty one.
Yeah.
It was like, I think he would have got a shot. That was, and you could argue that, right? But it was like, I think he would have got a shot off, so therefore it's a clear goal score opportunity. Mickey was literally in the middle of doing that, and he gets upended, right? So I don't know how they do it. And the only difference, what they seem to prefer, or I think it's almost, I think it's like an unconscious bias. The only way I can describe it is an unconscious bias, not in the way, like I've not got my tinfoil hat on here, albeit, you never know, right? There's a couple of decisions that obviously Hearts are starting to pull the strings of the SFA. But anyway,
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it as long as they win the title. Don't care.
If you want to win it like that, Craig, then
as long as I don't have to hear about it, as long as it never comes out, I'm fine with it. Cheer you on. But I just want that day. I want that day to celebrate.
Cal Choppoli, the Scottish football version. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's look into that. No, I think it's an unconscious bias from referees in that there's a double jeopardy rule now, right? And therefore, I think Cammy Kerr got the benefit of the doubt because it was a genuine attempt to play the ball. I wouldn't dispute that. But because it was outside, so if it was inside the box, it's not a red card.
Yeah.
If it was outside the box, it is. And I think because of all the other ones we've seen have either been, there were other ones in the games we'll come on to talk about, they're either very extremely cynical or clumsy. But not an attempt to play the ball, and that's where they've decided that, you've not made an attempt to play the ball, therefore I'm going to definitely make that, that's a dog so, which I hate saying, the red card. And because Cammy Kerr's jumped in and made the tackle and actually tried to play the ball, they've just not. I would love to hear the audio on it, because I think it sounded like, from what Marvin Bartley said as well, that it wasn't he literally said in his post-match interview that because if they thought it was a foul, then it would have been a red card. I was like, yeah, I know, Marvin, I know. But so I don't know if he's been told that they didn't think it was a foul or what. I mean, I'd like to hear the audio of it, but I mean, it clearly is a denial of goal scoring opportunity, and they've just fucked up. Anyway, that was only one part of the. Yeah, so
I've got a friend of mine that earlier on said in response to, he thought it should have been a red card as well. But then he added, it's their own fault for going 2-0 down to a pile of shite anyway. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I would say that actually I think the main thing to take away. They weren't a pile of shite today. Livingston were really, really good. And that's like, it's... I'm not actually too down about it from a Rangers perspective. Not obviously that you can pick holes and plenty of things went wrong and could have been a lot better. Defending, finishing, all sorts of things. But actually, I thought Livingston were really, really good. First of all, took both goals extremely well. The first one's just an absolute cracker, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't really do it. So I kind of felt of it, to be honest, is like, if you're going to drop points, that's the way to do it. That's not been the case. That's not been the case in recent games of Rangers. Motherwell, that certainly wasn't the way to drop points from a Rangers perspective.
No, to come back away from home, 2-0 down, come back, get a point.
Yeah, and more so that like, well, you've conceded. One goal was like poor defending, right? But
still a good finish.
Livy took it really well, and the pass was really good as well. And then the first one's just a cracker, right? So that can happen. They make one mistake and concede a screamer. That can happen.
And the opposition goalkeeper thought that absolute...
Opposition goalkeeper has. And that is one of the biggest... We don't really talk about it enough, but it's that's one of the biggest points of variance in football, is whether the opposition goalkeeper has a good game or doesn't. And a lot of times people can think a team's in really good form because they've come up against a goalkeeper that's just chucked them in the last 3 games or whatever. As we were discussing with Motherwell today, or last night rather. So that can happen, and it very much didn't happen with Jerome Pryor was absolutely brilliant today. So that kind of thing, it wasn't the Rangers were kind of, I don't know, like you were horrendous defensively, were like all over the shop, were like going to concede eventually, and then did. It was really the only two times Livingston looked anything like scoring, they did, and fair play to them. And then Livingston defended extremely well and had the goalkeeper had a stormer. So it looks absolutely crap. Like Rangers go away to 10-man Livingston, bottom of the league, haven't won. I think Livingston still on track to break the record of the most games without a win in Scottish football history, as I understand it. I think they're a couple off that now. But they performed extremely well, and the Rangers still should have had enough, and they nearly did. But in the circumstances, I think like it's not as a good point, because I kind of the amount of times the Rangers have like after games and even like maybe a couple like days after, like you know what, like that could turn out to be a good point. But I think we've got like 11 of those, like that could be a good point now. I think we're on course to break a record. It makes up about a fifth of our points tally as draws. So it's like we've had a lot of those. We have had an awful lot of draws. But it's obviously it's better to get beat. That's I would say that, and I don't think it's. I was more alarmed by the Motherwell and Livingston and Hibs games in terms of the lack of creativity and actually approach. Now that's not to say that that's fixed, because I think Livingston was just approached differently anyway. But yeah, I wouldn't go away saying like Rowe was an absolute idiot. What did what were the changes about, or what was the team selection about, or anything like that? I think it was one of those days which could have gone worse, actually, given the sort of it's kind of the kind of luck and variance. And Livingston is not to say Livingston were lucky. They sort of made their own luck by performing really well and defending extremely well and taking their chances extremely well. But yeah, that's quite a lot of that. Rangers are sort of unlucky for that to have happened to them, I would say. But nevertheless, this is what it is.
So one reason it wasn't the worst day is that you did actually gain up. Well, you were ahead of Celtic anyway, but they've got to have a game in hand, so you gained a point on Celtic overall with that the result, as Celtic lost 2-1 at home to Hibs, our third game. This took place at the same time as the Rangers match. Hibs opened the scoring. Paslak getting on the end of a Nicky Cadden cross that was wiped out just before half-time. Benjamin Negrin scoring again for the reigning champions. It remained 1 each going into towards the last 15 minutes of the game. Celtic had a corner. Play was stopped at the corner. The referee wanted to have a talk with Auston Trusty after he had an altercation with Jamie McGrath. It was then called over to the VAR screen where Trusty was shown a straight red card, where Hibs were then able to use their advantage with Kai Andrews scoring a winner with 3 minutes remaining. Their first victory at Celtic Park since 2010 and helping Hearts in the title race. Now, right, so we'll get to the red card soon enough. And Trusty's costed Celtic the game here. But from Hibs' perspective, right, I know you're going to feel conflicted about this, helping Hearts, but right, you can look at it from this point of view. Your players are never going to lie down at this stage of the season. Like, most of your players won't be, like Hibs fans won't really. They've just got their own careers. They want to, especially a match like this, they're away to Celtic. They want to show their best. They want to play their best. They want to win the match. But what can happen is kind of what I mentioned earlier, like after the split, if Hibs are like, say Motherwell will keep winning and Hibs just have the form they've kind of been having over recent weeks, months, and Falkirk fall away a little bit. Then you've got fifth wrapped up. Then you can have your own wee island. Then you can start rotating players for the games against the old firm. And then that's fine because you're likely going to lose them because they're going to be disjointed. It's going to be guys who are maybe not as fit and not as sharp, etc., etc. But when Hearts come to town, you're going to be full strength, as it doesn't matter what's in the line. You're going to be desperate to win a derby. And both Hibs and Motherwell, so now they're 6 points ahead of them. They've got a pretty similar run-in between now and the split. And at 6 points now, they both play Motherwell and Aberdeen away and both play Killie at home, but Falkirk also hosts Rangers. So you could be looking at that. If it shakes out, that could be 9 points come the split, and then you're fine. And then you don't have to worry about it. You've got the last European place, and then you can rotate players, help Celtic and Rangers to win the title, and Hearts will win the title. So there you go. So stop worrying so much, you bunch of losers. Stop worrying so much. Just enjoy it. You won at Celtic Park. It's great.
I don't think they're going to take that to heart, Craig. that stirring speech.
Try to help them, Ian. Try to do my best here.
We had Tony in the terrace group chat earlier moaning that Celtic didn't get a penalty for Liam Scales getting manhandled by Iredale, I think it was, in the box. So yeah, it's gone. It's gone. I will say that I thought that should have been a penalty. It looked like he did have a strong fistful of Scales' jersey. I can see the argument would be that VAR wouldn't look at it as a clear and obvious error, with the referee having missed it at the time. Like, it's hard to tell how much that does impede Scales. Does he exaggerate? Does he throw himself to the ground? But you can clearly see that Iredale's got a good chunk of it, and Scales goes down. And I think that should have been a penalty. I don't get anybody complaining about the red card. I think it's a red card. I don't remember seeing a red card like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like a karate chop.
Yeah. It's wild. What's he doing?
Yeah, it's just way too much force, and there's a couple of odds that, I'll get back on my conspiracy pedestal. But when he kicked Jack Butland in the head, now there wasn't much force in that, right? But it was a weird thing to do because Butland already had the ball.
Yeah.
And that he didn't start the kicking, but that's why I thought it was a red card. He didn't start the kicking motion until Butland already had the ball. So what are you doing? It wasn't like the ball was just there and he went to go for it. And this was again just a weird. You could tell that like McGrath, I think it was McGrath, wasn't it? He was in this. He had the thing with, but like it hurt. Like it looked like there was a lot of force in it. So I think you could. It's the kind of thing you would never have. I don't think that would ever been given as a red card without VAR. Yeah, because I think even if a referee saw that in front of him, I think he would have gone, well, they're both kind of, I'll just have a word to them, tell them to stop holding each other, and that'll be that, which is what happened, obviously, with the ref. But then the more you see it back, you're like, that's weird actually to do that, and then VR get involved. So again, to get back, I'll just go off it, I'll get back on it. The Rangers conspiracy theory, like now Trusty misses the Old Firm game, which is a disaster for Rangers. So another, decision that's gone against Rangers this weekend. But I think it probably is a red card. It's just one of those like kind of, I think I would probably be. I think if I was a Celtic fan, I would probably be like 90% annoyed at Trusty and 10% annoyed at the officiating there. in terms of the blame for the because I think it probably could. I don't know that it would have been like we would have been talking about it had it not been given. That's the one thing I'll say about it. Maybe we would.
Yeah, maybe. There was a lot of force. Like you said, there was a lot of force there. Like there
was a lot of force.
It's violent conduct. So it doesn't come under the endanger an opponent thing. Well, I did see a Celtic fan say he could have broken his arm, which I thought was a wee bit over the top. But he's certainly doing it like it's brutality in the rules. That was like a brutal action that he done. So I think it was a red card. I don't think there's really any complaint about that. What they should complain about is the fact that Trusty, I think, cost them the game, because I think Celtic were going on to win that match. I know there was only 50 minutes left, but I think there was 5 minutes added on, so there was but 20 minutes left. Like from in the first half, there was a period after the initial kind of Celtic start where Celtic got to the blocks quite quick. Hibs then threatened, obviously got the goal. Very good cross for Cadden. Passlack comes in from the other side. We're going to see a bit of that because Passlack's somebody that likes to get forward. Cadden's obviously got that great delivery. He's back in quite good form again with that. But Hibs also threatened there a couple of times where Martin Boyle should have done better, I think, on at least 2 occasions where he just held on to the ball too long. And if he made an earlier pass, Hibs might have been in, or at least had a better opportunity to try and score. But then from around about 25, when was the goal, actually? Let me just double check when the goal was. The goal was, the goal was at the 25th minute, so it was maybe about another 5 minutes after that where Hibs threatened. And then from that point forward, until the red card, like Hibs barely got up the park. Like Celtic were turning the screw, incessant pressure, eventually got the goal before the end of the half. And in the second half, they were right at them. News filtering through that Rangers were 2-0 down, and then Celtic Park atmosphere really kind of lifted at that point, and a goal just seemed inevitable. Did get to the stage where it got a little bit more bogged down, and Hibs were able to make sure it wasn't quite, incessant pressure, but it was still like, it wasn't like Hibs were doing anything down the other end. They were really struggling, having threatened it early in the first half with Boyle. They then just couldn't make the ball stick at all, and it was just coming back constantly, and they were just, as an attacking force, not in the game. Then Trusty gets sent off, and suddenly it's, as you would expect, Hibs doing what you should do in that situation, knocking the ball about the park well, looked a lot more confident and composed in possession, and then eventually scored a good goal through that as well. So it is undoubtedly, I think Celtic would have scored, as they've done so many times in the season, scored late in games to get a result here and to get the 3 points and to dig it out again. And instead, they've left with nothing, and I think that's the fault of only one man.
Yeah, it's this could be the turning point for Celtic season, more so than the game on Thursday, but against Stuttgart. But albeit, I think that Stuttgart game is actually really important because they were horrendous, and I think that was a proper. Like, I always think with teams like that, like the way Celtic have been, it's kind of this like invincibility cloak they've had. It's like the Martin O'Neill plot armor. Like, oh well, he's come back and he's gonna, nobody can beat him, and they're gonna win the league. And I think Celtic have been really poor for months. I mean, there's not loads of people who said that, but I think they have really been. I think they were poor under Martin the first time as well. And kind of that, I think that dip of results was coming. It wouldn't have been as spectacular, I think, as it was under Nancy. However, Celtic are now going into, that's them lost 2 games in a row. They then have Stuttgart away, which I imagine Stuttgart will take it pretty easy, but will win that game as well. So that'll be 3 games in a row they've lost. Then they go to Ibrox. Which obviously I dearly hope they lose at. And all of a sudden that's 4, hopefully, 4 games in a row they've lost. I know it's doubling their current losing streak just at the stroke of a pen, but nonetheless, that's, I dearly hope that happens. And then they're away to Pittodrie.
They're winning
see how that goes. Well, probably, yeah. We'll come into that a lot later. And then they've got then they're away at Ibrox again. So you could actually get into what I would describe as a Nancy-esque sequence of results for Celtic, where they've lost 5 out of the last 6 or something like that. That could happen. And they're at that point. I mean, Celtic Park is just ready to explode with, or not even, well, it's not actually ready to explode, it's just ready to shrug. It's like complete indifference. I think there's probably never been more Celtic fans that are like kind of somewhere don't really want their team to win the league than there has been this season. Like, because I know that's not, I don't know, most Celtic fans and the vast majority of Celtic fans want to win the league still, but I think they all want to win the league. They probably all want to win the league, but I think they would all probably, the majority would also be annoyed that would allow the board to say, look, we knew what we were doing all along, right? I know what you're getting at. I'm fairly certain they would all want to win the league because there's Hearts or Rangers that could win it otherwise. Unless Motherwell come from nowhere. Maybe they'd be happy enough for Motherwell taking it if it got some board members to fuck. But no, I think the Hearts and Rangers being ahead of them, I think they're like, it's even if it keeps the board in place, I still want to win this title. Yeah. And I just feel that crowd's ready to like turn like properly on like the playing staff now as well. Like the board have had sort of, obviously born the brother in quite rightly. O'Neill isn't really going to, I mean, I think there'll be more and more murmurings about O'Neill, and I think rightly so, because I think Celtic have got one of the worst coaching staffs in the league, which I know some people think that's mental, but I really think that's the case. Like, I think I don't think many other teams in the league would have actually appointed a 73-year-old Martin O'Neill. Not that they could have done either, but I don't think they would have appointed somebody like that. And a failed Hibs manager, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Sean Maloney's the guy who apparently we get told quite a lot, so he's doing all the work. He like, if Dundee had appointed Sean Maloney, there would have been consternation. Like, so, albeit probably less consternation than the actually good manager they accidentally appointed in the summer. So I just think that is, it does have the, you could say they've imploded already, obviously several times this season, but I think Celtic have really now, this is it now. Do they pull it out the bag? And I mean, obviously the European tie's gone, but like, do they maintain dignity in midweek in Stuttgart? Which I think is easier said than done, because if Stuttgart want to rack up a score in that game, I think they can. And that's harder to, like, it's all well and good saying the game's done, and I'm sure players will be rested that need a rest. I imagine Cam McGregor will play as ever. Mm-hmm. But like, it's easy to say that, but you don't want to go and get a hiding, and that could easily happen based on they've already taken a hiding off this team at Parkhead. To then take that into, I think it all comes down to next week. Like if Rangers win that Old Firm game, then I think it's panic stations. You've done a great job of convincing me that Celtic are going to win that game at Ibrox now. So yeah, probably. Now that built up, almost certainly going to be the case. Yeah, let's move on to our fourth game, and that was game at Tynecastle. Hearts defeated Falkirk by 1-0. The goal coming towards the end of the first half with Islam Chersnikov getting his first goal for the Gorgie boys, as they once again now take back to double check this, 4-point lead at the top of the Scottish Premiership after the weekend's festivities. I moved on quite quickly there, but I needed to. But I just wanted to, there's one final thing I wanted to say that the Celtic Hibs game, which I thought Miguel Chaiwa was very good for Hibs in the middle of the park. So I've given him his due. Now on to Hearts. So here we are again, 4 points clear. We've got the cushion back. I think this game showed what Liam Corbett was talking about in that really good Patreon podcast he done with Craig Kearns last week. If you want to listen to that, that is available on patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. And he talked about McInnes trusting the players who put in the hard yards, who put in the graft, who do the running. So Kabore, for instance, not a great player by any means, but he plays most weeks because he never stops running. And he came on again in this one. Chesnikov, now that he's up to speed, he's already getting played in every game. I don't think he's put in a performance so far which I would rate it more than 6 out of 10, if that. But he gets a goal in this one, and he's playing because he puts in the running as well. He fights and he runs, and he ran himself into the ground in this one. He was knackered after about 60 minutes, but kept him on anyway. And he just kept going. And it just kind of made me appreciate that side to this Hearts team's play, because they've been doing this for most of the season. As a team, Hearts don't stop running. And especially at Tynecastle, it makes it so tough for opponents to play against. And so you've got that basis where
other than the occasional Stuart Finlay brain fart, they're a side that don't beat themselves. And they make it very difficult for the opposition to, they've got one of the best defensive records in the league. I think they've 6 more goals conceded, but they've got the third best defensive record, but 24 goals from 28 games is very good. And that's down to that, a solid enough base, but also they get a lot of protection from the players in front of it. And then you've got that sprinkler of quality that you get from Claudio Braga, who didn't score in this one, but he led the line very well. And Alexandros Kiziridis, who, he's not scored from open play since the Celtic game back in November, but he's still somebody that creates chances. He created the chances in this one. And
I thought he looked up a really good game, actually. Would you say is the best he's played in a while?
Yeah, I think that's the best since the second half of the derby at Easter Road, when he was the most.
Yeah, he was
the ball just kept going to him, and he was the kind of player dragging Hearts back into the game. And I think the reason why he played well at the weekend is that he had a bit more variety to his play. So he wasn't only cutting inside and trying to shoot. He went outside a couple of times. There was a chance in the first half where he could have flashed it across goal, and I think it kind of came off Liam McCann, and it could have went anywhere, but it just kind of ended up.
Yeah, Bean caught it, didn't he?
Yeah, Bean caught it, that was it. And there was one in the second half where he fired it across, and it looked like it was going to Magnuson to tap in, and I think it was Philip Lisa just managed to get a toe to it and deflect it away. And so he was looking for a man as well, with the Chesnikov goal. That's a position where he might shoot, and instead he makes a pass as well, and he'd done that on another occasion. So if he doesn't make himself so much of a one-trick pony, then he's got the quality to really harm opponents. And if Hearts are going to win the title, they're going to need Kiziridis to get back to the form he showed in the early part of the season. Because Braga, he's got over his slump that he had in the middle part of the campaign. He's just brilliant every week again. And if Kiziridis does that as well, that'll be the bridge between getting Shankland back in the team, which is still, I think they're talking still a few weeks away, but he is now back running. So, and Devlin's going to be back soon as well, which really needs, because whereas you getting injured again, there is a dearth of centre midfield options, but there is a possibility that McAtee and Benny can return for the Aberdeen game.
Yes, yeah, and Finlay obviously looks like he picked up a hammy as well.
That's not too bad. I like Joe McCart. We might miss Finlay's pace. That is one aspect of it. Finlay is the quicker of the kind of the centre half options, but I do like Joe McCart. I don't think it's a massive downgrade from one to the other. If Halkett went down, that's a different story.
Oh, we shall see. But it looked, I don't know, also the highlights this game, but it looked like Falkirk started pretty well as well.
Yeah.
They tend to, annoyingly for myself, they miss good chances against both Hearts and Celtic. But yeah, it looked like there was a couple where Bannister maybe could have done a wee bit better. You can see how, understandably so, how raw he is. I think maybe this time next year he could be really something quite special at this level, but he's not quite there yet. So he's kind of got most of the attributes that you want. So, and yeah, that just, again, Falkirk are just a good team playing well, but it did seem to me that I think it's hard to argue that Hearts didn't deserve it over the piece of Hearts. Second half looked like they had more, it looked more likely that Hearts were going to score second than Falkirk were going to equalise up until that header right at the end.
Yeah, Hearts were a bit more comfortable in the second half than I expected. It was still obviously nervy, because it's always going to be nervy when what's on the line and you've only got a 1-goal lead. But it was certainly an improved second half performance from Hearts after the first half, which, first 50 minutes started fairly well, but then from that point until just about the goal, really, they didn't play well at all, which is just becoming common. And I'm sitting there every week going, surely this team can't win a fucking league. Surely a team in the league has to actually play well. But like I said earlier, they're doing it on just not beating themselves and just grinding out these games. And if they can get a bit of that early season spark back again, then, watch out, especially with the games coming up. The Hearts have got a decent running. But anyway, one thing I wanted to point out as well, Hearts, before I talk about Falkirk, is so Derek McInnes, he's a weird one. He's a weird one sometimes. So in games recently, like Dundee away and St Mirren at home, right, fair enough. We were playing
10 men.
with 10 men. But even still, it was quite extreme in both those matches when defending the leads to go to a back five of all centre halves and a midfield three and then Kabori up front by himself. And just be like, right, we're just going to give you the ball and we'll just defend the box and then that'll be it. And then we'll trust our 41-year-old goalkeeper to make a world-class save in the last minute. And then for this one, so I saw Altena and Kabori coming on. And I was like, right, okay, I know what's going to happen here. He's going to keep Steinwender at right back and he'll bring off Blair Spittle and he'll put Altena in the middle of the park. And then he'll also take off, if not Braga, and maybe Chesnikov and put Braga on the right. But no, that's not what he did at all. Instead, he takes off Steinwender and he also takes off a midfielder, let me remind myself. Yeah, he took off Magnuson and went to a 4-2-4 to see out the game.
He contains multitudes, does Derek McInnes.
Certainly does.
Yeah. That
you're speechless now, aren't you? You don't know how to react to that.
I'm surprised to hear that. But I do, I'm not, because I kind of, I do, I mean, I've banged this drum before and I could absolutely have egg in my face towards the end of the season if Derek McInnes pulls off the greatest achievement in Scottish management over the last 50 years or whatever it will be, basically, right? 40 anyway. But I think he's a problem for Hearts relative to what they're up against to some extent. I kind of, notwithstanding what I just said about Warren O'Neill and then John Maloney, I do think there are elements where he, and they've all been guilty of this. Then you could turn level at Danny Rule after the Motherwell game recently, but I think Derek McInnes is the least likely to get out of his own way of all the managers involved in this. You can level ask you at times with the Scottish Cup result in midweek against Aberdeen. Every manager can make decisions, and you never know all the. Yeah, exactly. But I think McInnes is prone to that, and partly because I know Derek McInnes better than I know all the other managers involved. I've just seen more Derek McInnes games now than any of the rest of them. I just struggle to see him not doing I thought obviously I've not been on since Rangers beat Hearts last week. I thought that was a really poorly managed game from Hearts' perspective, given the fact that that you were kind of, I thought the plan was working and then they changed it. That's odd to me. So yeah, I do think that's we'll see how that develops. But what he has, and what McInnes has always had, and absolutely has, with this probably the best example he's ever had, teams play for him. There's absolutely no question of that. And this team is really, really playing for him. And, absolutely fair play. I just, some of the tactics will be, I think, from here, and some of the I kind of thought that you're saying that Hearts need Kizzaridis and Braga to be sort of in top form, which I'd agree with, and obviously you kind of need Shankland back as well. I thought, and maybe Saturday was the start of that, but I thought you need at least one, if not two or three, of the new signings to really be Kizzaridis and Braga at the start of the season levels, come in and lift it. And that could have been, as you obviously, he was, even though he was in the summer, if he'd come in
cursed.
And been
the boy is
that,
cursed.
Yeah, I know.
He got injured hitting a shot in the warm up, done his thigh.
Altena, if Altena had come in and been this boy's the best right back in the league, which it looked like he might have been on his debut, but then as obviously just isn't trusted. Leonard's been fine, but he's staying in the team when everyone's fit. Not sure. And Chesnikov was kind of the other one. Now maybe Chesnikov is going to be that. Maybe that he will score goals and he worked really hard, and that's more than Hearts had. It was kind of not more than what Hearts had, because he kind of had Harry Milne doing that somehow. But if you had even if he's just a Harry Milne clone, then if you had two Harry Milnes would be playing. So maybe that will be enough. But But yeah, I kind of, it's McInnes isn't the manager I think you would necessarily, as I said at the start of the season, which is why I didn't think this was all a great idea, but which is currently definitely the wrong opinion. I don't think McInnes is
You're going down with the ship.
Yeah, I'll go down with the ship. But when Hearts finish fourth, I will be very smug. I just think, is McInnes the right manager for this kind of project? I don't know. Is McInnes the right manager to win Hearts the league this season somehow? Maybe he is, right? Maybe he is, but
maybe a team that's consistent and just grounds out victories is the team that can win the league this season, because everybody else is doing weird stuff all the time.
Yes, exactly. So who knows? We'll see how that pans out.
There's a way to talk about Falkirk quickly. Firstly, Crell Wilson's performance in the first half was really, really good. He was giving Hearts a lot of problems. Was impressed with Dylan Tate. Some of their players, Miller, Brogio, maybe not the best of performances from them, but one thing that stood out to me, I thought, was defensively, because Falkirk did make it quite hard for Hearts to carve out opportunities, and some of that maybe goes to what we're saying in terms of the makeup of this Hearts team. But I think when you look, like, that was Philip Lisa, who's looked a lot better at left back or right back than he did at centre back, which he was originally signed to be. But he's looked better as a full back, and he's starting alongside Cole Donaldson. That's Donaldson's first start of the season. That's his partnership that's never played together, and in front of them they've got Brad Spencer and Dylan Tate protecting them, and that shouldn't work on paper. But for all the praise they've had of being a really well managed and really well coached side going forward, to get the best out of these players who, as we all know, were in League One not that long ago, and a lot of them are young players on loan from English clubs who have not had very little experience. I think it also should be said how impressive it is, how well, and they've got better as the season's gone on.
Yeah.
How well they are organised as a defensive unit as well, and that's what stood out to me most for this game. But let's get to our next one, our penultimate match. Aberdeen 2, Dundee 3. Usually this would be leading the podcast, but just so much going on with that title race, it had to be relegated into 5th spot, so apologies to Dundee fans. Aberdeen opened the scoring through Kevin Nisbet in the 13th minute. That was cancelled out by a Simon Murray penalty, and then the man that Tony said was basically Mr. Invisible, Joe Cottrell, put Dundee ahead just before the half. This was after Liam Morrison had been sent off for the hosts for denying a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity after being adjudged to have bundled over Tony Yogan in the penalty area. Aberdeen did manage to fight back, with Nisbet grabbing his second of the game, but Ethan Hamilton, with an absolute thunderbolt in the 84th minute, won it for the visitors. Can we get the red card out of the way first of all, Euan, and then you can tell me about how this match went? I thought the red card was a nonsense. I think Yogan initiates the contact. He doesn't have the ball in his possession yet. He just steps in front of him and then goes down, and I don't think it was a foul.
Could you have got a shot off? Yes, I think you could have done. Yeah, so that was, when we were talking about this earlier, I suppose, and this obviously goes into like the clumsy category rather than the cynical, because it's Morrison obviously clearly does not intend to foul him, because why would he? I think it's quite clever from Yogan.
It's certainly clever.
I never really know how to feel about these. Because ones where the forward has got themselves into a good position and then stops basically and lets themselves get clattered into from behind. There's an art to it, because you could obviously make it look too obvious that you've done that and you won't get it, or you can let the ball get too far away from you, and then that has a bearing in the decision. I think Yogan kind of played it pretty well. It's one of those, I think basically the punishment doesn't fit the crime, because there barely is a crime, and not only are you giving away a penalty, but you're down to 10 men, and that it kind of feels like they maybe need to look at that as a law of the game, because while it's not an attempt to play the ball, it's also not an intentional foul. But then they never have that kind of subjectivity of intent in the laws now, and they clearly don't want to, because they want decision, they want consistency, even though I don't actually think people do want consistency. I think people want the spirit of the game to be reflected in the laws rather than just like, well, if this happens, then we know what happens afterwards. Yeah, I think probably it is a red and a penalty as things stand, but it's very harsh for what is basically probably a bit of gamesmanship from Yogan and a bit of clumsiness from Morrison.
So I've not really seen any of this other than the red card and the winning goal. So where do you want to start, Aberdeen or Dundee?
Let's start with Aberdeen.
Okay.
Because I love kicking Aberdeen on this podcast. And this is a great example of it. Obviously, just a pathetic team. And this was a classic. I mean, it felt like they started with just the start of the game. So Aberdeen, it felt like Aberdeen had kind of obviously come off a back of probably quite a surprise result, I imagine, for a lot of people, certainly myself. But they had the sort of happy hangover of the game in midweek against Motherwell, and Aberdeen season obviously could have been over on Wednesday, and now it's not, because they've got the chance to retain the cup, which is mad. So it felt like they started the game well. Dundee started in that sort of classic passive Presley mode that they've had a lot of games. They've kind of grown out of it a wee bit, I would have said, over the course of the season, but like they have had spells where they've just been really, really passive in games, like be sat deep without actually like actively defending very much, I always thought, and being quite sort of quite cowardly on the ball. I mean, I think Nisbet had a good chance from a header before his goal, which basically came from Dundee could have passed forward and just went backwards for no real reason, and then McCracken got himself in a bit of a fine call, and Nisbet missed a pretty decent chance. So all going well. Nisbet then has the goal, which I think it was him when McCracken just had an absolute howler and pams it over his head and into the net. And brother Olasanya is the one that actually got the final touch before it went over the line. I think it was Nisbet, it was certainly given to him. And at that point, you're like, right, this could be the way the Dundee are playing. They aren't really. The way Aberdeen are kind of flying from midweek, you might think, well, you know what, this could actually be, because obviously, as been discussed on the podcast recently, like this is kind of almost like a new Aberdeen team. There's so many changes like of late that have come into it. So, new goalkeeper, come on, Tim. In Brattvie, then you got Morrison, McIntyre, new signings. Frame's only just to the team. Aremu's a new signing. Sandy's a new signing. Geiger's a new signing. Cameron's a new signing. And you've got Keskin and Nisbet, right? So it's kind of like, you shouldn't be, as an Aberdeen fan, I imagine, you shouldn't like hate this team already, because it's only like you've only seen half of these guys like 2 or 3 times, right? So you're like, more than that, it's like the majority of the team are just like pretty fresh. You're like, right, well, maybe this team will, maybe it'll strike out some chemistry and it'll actually be decent. And then they just like, and this was before the red card and the penalty. They just let Dundee back into it. And it was ridiculous how it was like a half of 2 halves, in that like Dundee, well before or a good like 10 minutes or so before the red card, we're coming back into, we're getting shots off. It started to look dangerous, having done nothing in the game up until that point. And Aberdeen just kind of let it happen. And just a complete lack of personality in that Aberdeen team, which has been the case for months and months and months at this stage. And then obviously the penalty, which as I said, like that clearly changes the game. But the game had changed already in that direction. It then gives Aberdeen obviously a more difficult task. But to concede before, again, you're thinking, right, can they just survive until half time? They start getting battered, and I would say from pretty much from then on, it was absolutely one-way traffic. Now Nisbet scores the cracking free kick in the second half, but that's really against the run of play and out of nowhere, really, in the context of the game, considering the Dundee were 2-1 up. As you said, the Cotterill, That's that. I think I was going in anyway. I think that's proper sort of like goal stealing from him, from Congreve. Should have had that goal. But like after that, it was absolutely one-way traffic. And if you look at it's not the be-all and end-all. If you look at the XG, like it was, and then it's slightly skewed by the fact that Cotterill's goals like 1 because he's on the line. Of course, and 1 was obviously a penalty in there as well, but it was like 3.5, I think, that Dundee had as XG, which is ridiculous. So it was an absolute pasting that they gave them, really. I think Aberdeen had 1 shot inside Dundee's box in the second half, which, considering I don't know they're out to 10 men, but like they are chasing the game at that stage. Like Dundee, as we know, Dundee are not the most difficult team to sort of frighten a wee bit and get them to sit back.
Yeah.
Right? It was Menage. I'm sure Presley was probably telling them, like, don't go nuts here, lads. We're 2-1 up. And Aberdeen do get back into it, but like with a wonder goal again out of pretty much nothing, only to be outdone by one of the goals of the season from Mason Hamilton. I mean, what a goal! What a goal! Excellent for my anti-Lyle Cameron agenda, by the way, because he is like a ghost twice in that move. He just looks like a wee boy running after it's Yogan first and then Ethan Hamilton second time. That's why he can't play any higher than Aberdeen. I know he's been getting decent reviews from Aberdeen fans, but like he's too wee and too bad at that side of the game that he can't play in centre mid, I don't think. But anyway, that's that's not to take anything away from the strike, which is unreal. And I think the one at Parkhead is better for me, but that is from Hamilton. But I think obviously that was for naught in the end, and this was for their first win at Pittodrie in 22 years, was it? It was a long time anyway.
And that's got a point behind them in the table as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dundee are not going to finish 11th. I will say that, because I think Dundee have enough about them, I think, not to. And also probably have like that underlying fear that they always thought they were going to be in this kind of problem. And like Dundee are exactly, well, I didn't even say Dundee were exactly where they thought they'd be. Dundee are probably ahead of where they thought they'd be, I think, going into the season. I think Dundee are having like a good season. And, they're more likely, I think, to push on. They're obviously not going to finish top 6 or anything like that, but they might push on so that they're absolutely not in danger. Aberdeen, on the other hand, I think pretty much anything could happen from here on. And with Aberdeen, like I wouldn't be surprised if they go on a pretty long losing run. I hope they don't, because they're playing Celtic soon, so they will have my hearty backing in that game. But like I don't see it with the, like I just don't. I think they've obviously got a very makeshift defence. I think, see, to compare, I was actually thinking about this earlier, and if you compare it to the Hearts team, they don't have quite as many, but they do have. Aberdeen have some like old experience, not old. Maybe in the case of Aberdeen, that's the problem. Actually, that they're a bit too old, but they've got some very experienced, league-hardened players. They've got like Nicky Devlin, Graeme Shinnie, and whereas the Hearts have the Craig Halkett's and Stuart Finley's and guys like that who are maybe a wee bit younger, and they've got Nisbet. And Hearts have got Shankland. So you've got like you could cobble together kind of a spine, almost a spine of a team. Aberdeen, of guys that should know the league, have been for several years like better. Some of the better players in that league who should be able to guide these players, the sort of new players through, as has happened at Hearts. Maybe not as many of the new signs have been brilliant yet, but like it's obviously helped Braga and Kizarides at the start of the season when they had like that sort of solid, experienced team around them. Those guys for Aberdeen, Nisbet notwithstanding, who played very well in this game, but obviously hasn't had a great season. Like Nicky Devlin's been fucking pish for months and was again crap in this game. Graeme Shinnie didn't play in this game because he was suspended. I know he scored in midweek. He's been pish as well for months. And I think that's a big problem in this team. They've had to take Mitov. You could almost put into that bracket again. The guy was his third season in the league, should be probably the best goalkeeper in the league last season, being pished and dropped. For Bradby, he looks terrible. So I don't think I think that'll be a long-lasting experiment. But these guys are the guys that have kind of chucked it, and then you're chucking guys like Morrison, young defender, probably not played as much football as you should have done, and he will make kind of those kind of mistakes that led to the red card. There's loads of other younger players in the team that are kind of flitting out of it, and you kind of expect that, but they just don't have any reliable players. Aberdeen, there's no baseline, and that's why those are kind of experienced guys that should provide that kind of solid 7 out of 10 every week level performance, which allows other guys around them to maybe go into peaks and troughs a wee bit around them. They do not have that, and they also don't have a management team that's permanent either, which can't help with any of that. So, and they've got so many players that aren't going to be there next season. That was what, if there's one thing that reminded me, if I was an Aberdeen fan, it'd be that. It'd be how many guys is it going to be a disaster for their career if Aberdeen get relegated? It would obviously be a low in loads of players' careers that were there, but there's loads of them that aren't going to be there. So that I think that has to have a bearing. So yeah, I would.
We should move away from Aberdeen. You've had your kicking. Before we move to our last game, any in particular part, any particular player from Dundee to highlight before we move on?
Hamilton was really good, as he kind of is most weeks.
Yeah, been a very good signing.
Even the goal, he's been excellent. Goal notwithstanding. Yogan had.
He's somebody that's really come on. For the start of the season, it's first few times I watched him, I was like, you did nothing, mate. But now, the last couple of months, he started to look like a consistently dangerous player. Not on the levels of a Cammy Congreve, but at least giving something on the opposite flank.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just it's the pairing, and Congreve had another good game. So, yeah, it's just having two guys like that. Really helps, and I thought Danda actually, that was kind of, and that's probably one of these guys that if you could play against 10 men every week, he'd look brilliant.
Yeah.
So he did have quite a good game as well. So yeah, they looked like Dundee looks like they really enjoyed themselves second half, and then conceded the free kick, and then they could have been kind of a hard luck story, but then scored a wonder goal of their own.
Right, let's move on to our final game, and that was Dundee United 1, Kilmarnock 1. The game taking place at Tannadice. Dundee United scored through Amar Fata with only 16 minutes remaining, making up for a first half penalty miss. But Kelly managed to rescue a point with Marley Watkins scoring in the 91st minute. Kelly did also have a man sent off. Jack Thompson was sent off for another denial of a goal scoring opportunity and near the end of this one, but it ended up a 1-1 draw. So, Euan, I want to start with Dundee United, because this was a really good opportunity to get back-to-back victories on the board, and they've been undone. And what really stood out for this was that United looked knackered towards the end of this game. Kelly had two other really good chances to level. One of them was not really good. It was a shot from Dominic Thompson, but it whistled past the far post. And then they had a really good chance where, can't remember who it was, and it was a header for close range.
It was a header, yeah.
It was right at the goalkeeper. But United, having been, first half kind of ebbed and flowed. United with a better side to begin with, but Kelly came back in it. You wanted to say you can maybe see United on points, to use boxing terminology. Second half, they were definitely the better side, but see when it got to the last 5-10 minutes, you could tell they were just running on empty. Because obviously they played in midweek as well, but what I noticed was that Goodwin changed it to 3-5-2, and in the first half, Craig Sibbald got injured. Now, that wasn't the biggest of problems for this game. Sibbald was having, who's been really good recently, was having one of his quieter performances in the middle, and then he went off. But what it meant was that they didn't really have any ability to bring anybody else on. So when he went off, it was Ryan Strain that came on instead, and Lucas Stevenson went in the middle of the park. And then I was watching them towards the end, because I know they'd only made two changes, the other one being Sapsford coming on for Waters. And I was like, why has he not made another sub? And then I looked at their bench, at the players that he had available.
So why?
Yeah. Dolchek, Eskison, Ferrugia, Krapanovsky, all attacking wide players or attacking like number 10s. And then the other two is Keresteys and Claire Harding. But you don't want to take off when you're defending a 1-goal lead at home and your defence has played quite well. You don't want to take off any of them to bring somebody else on and potentially upset things. So I could see why he didn't do that. And with Sybil out, if he's out for a while, and I think Goodwin was like the kind of way Goodwin was talking after the game is that it doesn't look good that he's not going to be, it's just going to be like a mild strain or whatever, and he's going to be back in a couple of weeks. Then it's starting to show that they're a team that was really built for the 3-4-3 because there's not a lot of options in the middle of the park. And Pan Camera, who I thought played really well, he looked back to his best, like early season best in this one. But he in particular, you can see him at the goal. He just looks knackered. And they've got the Ghanaian side in the made. Agier, he made his debut after a slow start. I like to look at him. It's kind of similar to Kilmarnock in terms he's got that quick feet to kind of wriggle away from tight areas, but he's more of a kind of defensive player. Pardon me. And he made his impact on that. But they've just, like, in terms of, if they're going to play a 3-5-2 again, they've only got 3 players who can play in the centre park. Because obviously, Papo's out for being out long term as well. I've not heard anything about him coming back any soon. So, as unpopular as it may be, I think they're going to have to go back to the 3-4-3 because in order to just make the squad work, because they've got 4 games in 10 days starting with the Aberdeen match. Yeah, and that pitch won't help, I imagine, with fitness either. Yeah, and that's the reason why they've been knackered. Yeah, that does look like hard work to play on. So, yeah. I mean, I only saw the highlights of this one, but Fata, again, like, I feel like they should have maybe got more out of him over the course of this season. Like, he's got something, and you can kind of tell why, because sometimes you see these wee flashes, that's why Man City signed him. But he's obviously not going to be a player at that level. But yeah, absolutely superb goal, bad penalty. That was another. I thought that was actually the worst decision of the weekend for me. Was that I couldn't see what that penalty was for. Like, I don't think Brad Line actually does anything. I thought. I mean, I know it's contact, but I think Will Ferry just like absolutely just dives over his foot. But anyway, the penalty was saved. And yeah, I think Kelly, I don't know what you think about them. I just have a wee suspicion they're going to get themselves out of this. So, what I would say about Kelly is that, I think they're looking a bit better. One thing that's really stood out for me, and it's a key thing for them, and that I think this change in shape to the diamond has got the best out of Greg Kiltie. I think when I've seen him, the Celtic game, this game, the match against Aberdeen, I believe it, Aberdeen game, he's played well in all of them. And especially the first half in this one. Second half, I'll get into it. McCann made a change, and I don't think it really worked for Kiltie. But Kiltie, because they're really they've struggled all season due to injuries and squad building. They've struggled all season for creativity. And now you've got him getting back to his kind of best form. It's not. He's never somebody that we're going to say is like a, top 6 kind of third place level talent in the Scottish Premiership. But we've known him for years. He's a good creative player who can help you, especially if you're a bottom 6 side, and he can help a team get away from relegation. And that's what he's bit by bit doing with Kiltie at the moment. First off, he's just like, because he's just quite a, what is it with Kiltie? He probably lacks the explosiveness that you need for a creative player. Like, he doesn't really do anything out of the ordinary. He basically should be a winger, but he's not quick enough. Yeah. Like, he's kind of like, and then, but what he does have, I think his best trait is that he's really good at kind of picking up space and finding areas. And he's a more mobile player than his pace would have you believe. Yeah. Because if he just finds areas around the attack. And he helped them he plays a part in the move for the equalising goal as well. And they've also got Finlay Curtis in, who's looking like a really good signing. Now, he played up front, or just kind of off the forward in this one, played off Hugo. I wasn't that impressed with Hugo, but Curtis done the kind of back to goal stuff in terms of like link up play. It wasn't like he was like knocking it long term and he was holding it in or anything, But just in terms of playing with his back to goal and playing those like kind of short wee passes, he was quite impressive with that. And he's been good since he came in. So there's a couple of things in there to get excited over if you're a Kelly fan while you're still, I don't know what the latest is on, and not
John
McGuinness.
Giles.
I was going to say McGuinness. Yeah, John Giles, because I think the chat is now is that his injury against Celtic isn't as bad as they were first feared. So they've got him. I was going to say McGuinness coming back, but that's not who I meant. I know he is at Killy, but it's Matty Kennedy. I don't know if there's any chance of him coming back. But if there is, then you've got you've got a few players there, a few options in attack that can get you out of this bother.
Obviously scores as well.
Tisbola did have a good game in this one, but he's somebody that can help kind of calm things down more. You're bringing Polworth on the bench, he was good, so there's a wee bit of strength there going forward now. So yeah, it does look a bit rosier than it did, and they're looking a bit more, the collapse against Celtic notwithstanding, they're looking a bit stronger defensively as well over the last few weeks. And they were decent again at the back in this one. And that's Shelp Brown. He's somebody that's impressing me as these weeks are going on. But I'll tell you about what I didn't like was that McCann at half time, he brought off Brad Lyons and he put on Marley Watkins. I don't know if that was because Brad Lyons had said after the Celtic game that complaining about the time Adidon was clutching at straws or not.
It's not the party line. It's not the party line, Brad.
It was not the party line. But he was taken off at half time, and it was Marley Watkins was brought on instead, and they moved Curtis back to the right of the diamond. I don't think that really got the best at Curtis, and what it did as well, whether it was part of the game plan, maybe to do with the pitch as well, or whether the players just done this because of the fact it was Watkins and he's a taller player, and then they would have kind of two taller players. But Kelly just got quite direct after that. But they were direct without making it really stick when they'd done it. So it was just kind of, one-way traffic would maybe be a bit of an exaggeration, but it wasn't far off, if you know what I mean. And they just didn't really do an awful lot until the last 5-10 minutes of the match when, like I say, a lot of it was to do with the fact that United kind of ran out of legs. So I thought that was a mistake for McCann, but there was still things in this game to be very encouraged by if you're a Killie fan.
Yeah, I think McCann actually, now that you say that, McCann, he said that I think he was actually talking about a change he made to do with the goal he conceded. Was it they told Curtis to go on or something like that? Basically, he was like, the team got me out of a hole. I can't remember exactly it was to do, I think it was to do with like he swapped the wingers over or something like that, and they weren't quite where they should have been, and that's why Fata had the space he had to score. Right. But he wasn't saying that he made a hash of things at halftime, but he was saying that he made a hash of things, and then he said that the team had got him out of a hole, which I suppose would be humility is not always an attribute associated with Neil McCann, but that would be something that goes down well with the players if he sort of taking something on the chin. It's like he not managed something particularly well. And it's kind of like, it's more a vibes thing, but I kind of think, again, Kelly having been in that position and knowing the position that they were in, I think that's kind of, given the way this season's going, it just feels to me like some of those teams that, be that St Mirren or Aberdeen or maybe even Dundee United as well, like, those teams might drop into it, whereas your Kilmarnocks and Dundees, who always thought they were in it from pretty early on this season, the Dundee probably from the start of the season, I think they might be able to just, like, I don't know, that kind of determination and mission, like, both those teams would be delighted to finish 10th, whereas for Aberdeen and Dundee United, that's a really bad season. So I do wonder if that will have a bearing as it feels like the bottom six is contracting a bit.
Right, I think that will do us. Euan, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Craig.
And thank you to everybody for listening. We will be back later this week with our usual lower league show. Until then, goodbye.